secret microchip to spy on U.S. computers. In 2010, the U.S. Department of Defense found thousands of its computer servers sending military network data to China. The result of the code hidden in the chips handled the machine startup process. In 2014, Intel Corp discovered that an elite Chinese hacking group breached its network through a single server that downloaded malware from the supplier's update site. And in 2015, the Federal Bureau of Investigations warned multiple companies that Chinese operatives had concealed an extra chip loaded with the backdoor code in one manufacturer's server. Each of these distinct attacks had two things in common. China and Supermicro Computer Inc., a computer hardware maker in San Jose, California. They shared one other trait. U.S. spy masters discovered manipulation but kept them largely secret as they tried to counter each one and learn more about China's capabilities. China's exploitation of products made by the Supermicro, as the U.S. company is known, has been under federal scrutiny for much of the past decade, according to 14 former law enforcement and intelligence officials familiar with the matter. That included an FBI counterintelligence investigation that began around 2012 when agents started monitoring the communication of a small group of Supermicro workers using warrants obtained under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, according to the five of the officials. Whether that probe continues is unknown and is a full account of its finding. As recently as 2018, the FBI listed the private sector help in analyzing Supermicro equipment that contained added chips. According to an advisor to the security firms that did work, the Supermicro saga demonstrates a widespread risk to global supply chains, said Jay Tabb, a former senior FBI official who agreed to speak generally about China's interference with the company's product. Supermicro is a perfect illustration of how susceptible American companies are to potential nefarious tampering of any product they choose to have manufactured in China, said Tabb, who was an executive assistant director of the FBI's National Security Branch from 2018 until he retired in January 2020. It's an example of a worst-case scenario if you don't have a complete supervision over where your devices are manufactured. Tabb declined to address the specifics of the FBI's probe. The Chinese government has been doing this for a long time, and companies need to be aware that China is doing this, he said, and Silicon Valley in particular needs to quit pretending that this isn't happening. Neither Supermicro nor any of its employees have been accused of wrongdoing, and former U.S. officials who provided information for the story emphasized that the company itself has not been a target of any counterintelligence investigation. It says in response to the detailed question, Supermicro said it has never been contacted by the U.S. government or any of its customers about these alleged investigations. The company said Bloomberg had assembled a mini-mash of disparate and inaccurate allegations. It says that draws far-fetched conclusions. Federal agencies, including those described in this article, as conducting investigations still buy Supermicro products, the company said, and it noted that this account of counterintelligence investigation lacks full details, including the probe's outcome or whether it's ongoing. The full response is published here. Supermicro is an American success story, and the security and integrity of our products is top priority, the company said. A spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry called the accounts of these attacks attempt to discredit China and Chinese enterprise, accused U.S. officials of making things up and hyped up the China threat. China has never and will never require enterprise or individuals to collect or provide data, information, intelligence from other countries for the Chinese government. by installing backdoors, the spokesperson said in a written statement. The story is drawn from an interview with more than 50 people from the law enforcement, the military, Congress, intelligence agencies, and the private sector. Most asked not to be named in order to share sensitive information. Some details were confirmed in the corporate documents. Bloomberg News reviewed. Bloomberg Businessweek first reported on China meddling with the Supermicro products in 2018 in an article that focused on the accounts of added malicious chips found in the server's motherboards in 2015. That story said Apple Inc. and Amazon.com Inc. had discovered the chips on equipment they had purchased. Supermicro, Apple, and Amazon publicly called for a retraction. U.S. government officials also disputed the article with an additional reporting. It's now clear that Businessweek report captured only part of the larger chain of events in which U.S. officials first suspected the investigation, monitored, and tried to manage China's repeated manipulation of Supermicro's products. It says throughout the government, officials kept their findings from the general public. Supermicro itself wasn't told about the FBI's counterintelligence investigation, according to 3 former U.S. officials. The secrecy lifted occasionally as the Bureau and other government agencies warned of a select group of companies who sought help from outside experts. In early 2018, 2 security companies that I advised were briefed by the FBI's counterintelligence division investigation that discovered the added malicious chips on Supermicro's motherboard, said Mike Janke, a former Navy SEAL who co-founded DataTribe, a venture capital firm. These 2 companies were supposedly involved in the government investigation where they used advanced hardware forensics and actual tampered Supermicro boards to validate the existence of the added malicious chips. Janke, whose firm has incubated startups for former members of the U.S. intelligence community, said the 2 companies are not allowed to speak publicly about that work, but they did share details of their analysis with him. He agreed to discuss their findings generally to raise awareness about the threat of Chinese espionage within the technology supply chains. This is real, Janke said, and the government knows it. Round eye so stupid. We have all computers. You're so stupid.